born to a woman that was barren. She was without child. Great tragedy for her and in her culture. It's very difficult. And the angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, hey, you're going to have a son. And also, this is kind of very unique, the angel of the Lord asked her to be separate from some things. Going back to, I believe, is it Numbers or Leviticus? I can't remember now. There was something, a voluntary vow that any person in Israel, man or woman, could take, and they could refrain from eating grapes. There's nothing wrong with eating grapes unless you're a dog. Don't give dogs grapes. They would refrain from eating raisins or having anything that came from the grape, like wine. They would also not cut their hair for a time. And it would just be a special time of dedication to God. They would seek the Lord. And it was just something that God prescribed that they could do for a season. But as this angel, which we're going to discover it's the Lord himself. She probably thinks it's a prophet as well as her husband, Manoah. But as the angel of the Lord is speaking to her, he says, hey, you're going to have a baby. You're going to conceive. Be careful not to drink wine or similar drink. Do not eat anything unclean. You're going to have a boy. No razor shall come upon his head. The child shall be a Nazarite. That was the vow. Not from Nazareth, something different. Jesus was from Nazareth. This is a different thing. Going back to Numbers 6, actually, is the place. He'll be a Nazarite to God from the womb. Don't cut his hair. He shouldn't be eating anything unclean. He should live a life separated to God. And the prophecy over this young man's life that was being born to a barren woman was that he shall, and there's a little bit of tragedy in this, he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines, kind of the arch enemies of Israel. They had completely and brutally subjugated the people. They were in complete control. And no doubt in Manoah and his wife's heart, and many of their neighbors, many of the people of Israel, they had cried out to the Lord for a deliverer. And to this barren woman, God delivers this message. You're going to have a baby. He'll be separated to me. But something very interesting that we saw last week, and I think very relevant to my life as a dad, or maybe your life as a parent or a mom, or even having great influence in your grandkids or your nieces and nephews' lives, is that the Lord would ask of her, hey, I want you to be separate too. You be separate from these things and provide that example to your son who is also going to be separate. If you would live a holy life, that will help your son to live a holy one too. I think much of what we want our kids to learn is, and I'm just stealing this, you've heard it, it's caught, not taught. And our lives should be infectious to them in the best of ways. They should see something very real and genuine, and despite our flaws, know that something truly is supernatural about the Spirit inhabiting and empowering their parents. They should see unnatural wisdom. They should see unnatural strength. And they should see some measure of our devotion to the God that gave his whole life to us. Right? Doesn't that make sense? It's really beautiful. Manoah hears from his wife that this has happened, and beautiful, an amazing response. His response to the angel of the Lord, an angel from God came, a man of God came, his countenance was as the angel of God. He told me, you're going to have a son. He should be set apart. He should be like an Nazarite all the days of his life. Manoah hears all that, and the first thing he does is he prays. And he says, this is so beautiful. I've been thinking about it a lot. Oh, my Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to us again. For what purpose? So he can dazzle me? So I can see his shining face? No, so he can teach us what we should do for the child that will be born. Manoah instantly understands his great need for instruction to do what God is calling him and his wife to do. And he says, please send him, God, please send him again. God listened to the voice of Manoah. The angel returned, met with Manoah's wife again. She ran, got her husband. He came. Manoah meets the man. You know, they don't know that he's the Son of God in the flesh. And Manoah asks, hey, what is my son going to do in his life? And the angel of the Lord kind of deflects and says, look, may he be holy and separate. Do all of the things that I commanded you. We want to know the future real bad. We want to know the future for our kids and for our lives. But God would say, hey, what have I called you to do today? That's how you get to the future, right? One day at a time. And so they want to offer a burnt offering. Manoah runs. He gets a burnt offering. He's going to sacrifice it. He doesn't know yet that it's the angel of the Lord or God himself. And Manoah asks his name. What's your name? The angel of the Lord won't tell him, but says, my name is Wonderful. Manoah offers the goat as an offering. And as the flame ascended to heaven, so did the angel of the Lord ascend in the flame of the altar and appeared no more to Manoah. And they knew that they had just seen God. And Manoah said to his wife, man, we're dead. We just saw God, But his wife, she's a bright one. She goes, if the Lord really wanted to kill us, he would not have accepted our offering, nor would he have shown us any of these things, nor would he have told us such things as these. And she bore a son, and she called his name Samson. So much ahead of his birth. I mean, in some ways, we got like John the Baptist. Of course, we got Jesus. We got others in the Bible, Esau and Jacob. We've got, Isaac, of course, where many things were said before they were even born. And God can do that because he knew you before you were born. He knew you before you were born. You weren't just an accident. You didn't just show up. You're not here just because. A lot of people have a lot of different backstories. You're here on purpose. You were created for something. For good works, actually, according to God. You're here for a reason. You came for a reason, and you're going somewhere. We are made for eternity, and he wants us forever. And so this son named Samson, kind of like, what did it mean? Bright like the sun, bright like the sun. But I said this last week, bright like the sun. This dude, I just can't let, I don't know what movie I'd even use, but some long-haired, muscle-bound 80s movie where the guy's kind of a doofus, but he beats everybody up all the time and has problems with women. That's like, I'm just stuck thinking Samson's kind of like that. Samson's story is not going to be easy to read, guys, but there's much that we can gain from it. As a child, at the end of chapter 13, he grew. The Lord's blessing was upon him. The Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him even then. And we're going to kind of catch up to this man. God intended for Samson to deliver the Israelites from the brutal subjugation of the Philistines. But it's something he only began to do and never completed, because as much strength and as much supernatural, you could say talent, that's a poor word, but as much giftedness as this man had, he did not devote his heart wholly to the Lord. There were always, all through his story, we're going to see Samson doing something. He's going to toy with what is forbidden. He's going to see if he can extract some sweetness from the very things God says is off limits. And he's always toying with something that will destroy him in the end. You know, I said this last week, but we'll find at the end of the Bible in Hebrews chapter 11 that his name is mentioned as a man of great faith, and surely his life ended that way. But most of his life is tragic, and we'll talk about that as we go through it. The Spirit of the Lord intended to do so much more with Samson than Samson ever allowed. I hope that's not true for my life or for yours. Chapter 14 begins this way, and it's been well said by others. Now Samson went down. Samson went down. And the rest of the, chapter 14, 15, and most of 16 is Samson going down morally. This is a man that could be used by God in many ways. And just to understand something, you might think, well, God uses imperfect people. He sure does. You're looking at one of them, and I'm looking at a whole bunch of them. But God does want all of our heart. And when we start playing games with God, the God who gave all of himself for us, if we try to hold things back from him, and when he says, don't do that, don't look at that, don't go there, don't say that, and we begin to grieve his Holy Spirit, who we often mistake for our conscience. We argue with our conscience, thinking we're arguing with ourselves, but we're actually arguing with God himself. And eventually God just steps back, says, if that's what you want, that's what you can have. And you'll reap what you'll reap because you've sowed what you sowed. And we'll see kind of a continual toying with evil on the part of Samson. And it just goes further and further and further. And he thinks, man, God has not removed all of my strength yet, so I must be good. I must be all right. He hasn't taken everything from me. I don't see the consequences yet, so I'll go a little further. Don't mistake God's long-suffering and kindness in not toasting you right away for his passivity and what's the word? Like permissiveness. He's not okay with the things that he said are not okay. And Samson makes that mistake. We'll see it. This is the first thing we hear about Samson as an adult. No doubt he's, a man now. He's of age, but Samson went down to Timnah. And he saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. And so he went up and he told his father and mother, saying, this is the first thing we hear Samson say, I have seen a woman. I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Jewish boys and Jewish young men were not to pursue the wives of the people around them because they believed in other gods. And God had set that standard way before Samson's life, but he wasn't interested. No doubt she was attractive. No doubt, there was some degree of excitement in the forbidden. And he went down to Timnah, it seems like for this purpose, he went down and he saw. And he went back and he reported to his parents, who would be, in that culture, necessary to procure this woman. Arrangements had to be made. Parents had to be involved. And notice, how heartbreaking for Manoah and his wife, who had such a heart for the Lord, such a heart for Samson's future and for how God was going to use him in their nation, to have him come and say, hey, I spied a real pretty Philistine gal and I want her. Get her for me. Man, heartbreaking. This is not the direction that they wanted to see their son go. It is a reality, parents, that we can have prodigals, isn't it? For God has prodigals, and he's a perfect father. It is a reality that Adam and Eve, who failed and then discovered God's grace and his promises sacrificially in the garden, raised Abel, who appreciated God and understood grace. Something has to die for my sin. They also raised Cain, who refused to accept that truth, that something has to die for his sin, and thought, well, if I just give God these fruits and veggies, my best is good enough. He became a murderer, right? Those godly parents, Adam and Eve, raised two very different boys. It is possible. And so right here we see two godly parents. They're watching their son grow up, and he is not making choices that they want to see him make. I've seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, get her for me as a wife. I want to be unequally yoked. I don't need a believing woman. I just want her. Then his father and mother said to him, they reasoned, they tried to, is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren or among all of my people that you must go and get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? Right, isn't there a woman among our tribe or any of the tribes of Israel? But Samson said to his father, look, he's bossing his dad around here. Get her for me, for she pleases me well. You see the 80s character that I'm thinking of now? This guy is just all about who? Himself, getting what he wants. Even though the Spirit has begun to come upon him. You know, it's kind of interesting to think. You have a whole nation crying out for deliverance. You have God at work bringing a child to a barren woman, them raising him in the ways of the Lord. And all of this, Samson is going to be used, not as greatly as God would have wished, but he is going to be used by God to help deliver, in some ways, the people of Israel for a season from the Philistines. He's not going to complete the work, even close to it. But it is a reality that sometimes God will use a person, though they're a mess, because so many other people are praying. And it's for the sake of the others. And then that person that's being used can then say, well, God's using me, so he must be okay with the way that I'm living. And what a tragic mistake that would be. We'll see the outcome in Samson's life, not totally tonight, but certainly next week in chapter 16. And we'll see it here. Samson says to his father, get her for me, for she pleases me well. But his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord that he was seeking. The Lord was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For at that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. You might think, man, that's kind of weird. God is going to use Samson's sin to do something good? Yes, God can make good things out of terrible choices. I made terrible choices in my teenage years that led me into addiction. And at age 21, I was in a mental hospital, gave my life to the Lord. All my bad decisions led me to a place where I needed a ton of help, and I was given an opportunity by God to come up to Maine and get help at a residential discipleship program. It's called Calvary Residential Discipleship. Now it was called Seven Oaks, right? But it was my sin that led to the opportunity for me to go to a place like that and get help. God worked something out of the ashes of my life. It's not quite the same for Samson, but God did use his poor choices here. He's going to use it to provide some measure of deliverance for the nation of Israel, which is crying out for help. So Samson, anyway, is going to go with his parents, went down to Timnah with his father and mother, and came to the vineyards of Timnah. Anybody notice anything? Where is he? He's in a vineyard. Isn't this the guy that's not supposed to be around grapes, raisins, and wine? Right? Guy with the long hair, right? Notice this. Now, to his surprise, it's very interesting, a young lion came roaring against him. I've never had that experience, but I don't want to. A young lion, seems like it's a young, hungry, vibrant, lion, came against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. We don't know if he was ever supernaturally strong before, but we're going to see it here. The Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he tore the lion apart as one would have torn a young goat apart, though he had nothing in his hand. I don't know if I should say this, but if you all saw Ralph tonight, and you said, hey, I've been praying for you. He looks great. He's in a pretty bad motorcycle accident. He hit a deer. And I heard at first that I just heard the detail. The deer got split in half. And I assumed it was the front of his motorcycle that did it. But the deer didn't hit the front of his motorcycle. It hit Ralph in the shoulder. And he split it in half. So if you're just wondering how tough Ralph is, that's how tough Ralph is. He had to be going 55 to do that. Samson just bare hands this lion, rips it apart like he was ripping apart a sacrificial young goat, I guess. But he did not tell his father or mother what he had done. You know, it could have surprised him. He could have been like, what just happened? You know, it happened so fast. He grabbed the lion, he tore it apart. Maybe that was the first instance where that kind of thing had gone down. We're not sure, but he doesn't tell his father or mother what he had done. Then he went down, which kind of begs the question. He's traveling to Timnah with them, but he's not. Is he walking with them? Nah, he's in the vineyard alone, and a lion comes there. Maybe the lion's from God, right? You think lion's like, hey, you shouldn't be here. But nah, he kills a lion, right? Makes it through. God didn't want him to die, not yet. And he makes it through, but he's not even with his parents. Kind of interesting. You know, we'll see through the story of Samson's life, another thing illustrated. I might as well say it now. You will never see Samson with a friend. This dude is always alone or with a woman. He is isolated. And the Bible tells us clearly, book of Proverbs, that a man who isolates himself, he seeks one thing. He seeks his own desire, and he rages against all sound judgment. Samson is a dude without friends. He is a dude without accountability. He makes his own rules, does his own thing, and just counts that God will give him what he needs when he gets to the situation where he needs it. And that's all going to catch up with him. So anyway, then, verse 7, he went down, he talked with the woman from Timnah, the Philistine gal, and she pleased Samson. Well, she was pretty. After some time, when he returned to get her, arrangements were made. He was going to, go and marry her. That's good. We'll kind of see a downward trend in his life. He starts with marriage. He ends up with Delilah. No marriage. Anyway. After some time, when he returned to Timnah to get her, he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, which I think is kind of weird. He's thinking, man, remember when I ripped that lion apart? Did that really happen? Maybe it's like a pride thing, or maybe he's just like, did that really happen? That was pretty unbelievable. But he went aside. It's kind of a picture of his life. I've already said it. But when he returned to get her, there was a lion. Behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the carcass of the lion. It had been dead for some time, guys. And he took some of it in his hands and went along eating. I mean, you got me right there. I'm not eating. Honey's good. Honey out of a carcass? I'm not interested. And this is where we would say that Samson is always reaching into what is forbidden, looking for something sweet. He was told as a Nazirite from the womb to his death not to eat anything unclean. He's reaching into a dead animal's carcass because he sees something he wants, and he's willing to do that. Notice, too, when he came to his father and mother, again, he's alone. He's not walking with them. They're walking separate. He gave some to them, and they also ate. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. It's very interesting. It's almost like, I don't know what to think about that. These details, remember, we're reading more than just history. Why is that detail included? Why, with the Holy Spirit, through the author of this book, probably Samuel, why was that detail included? I wonder if Samson was trying to justify the things that he was doing. He gave the honey to, his mom and dad. He didn't tell them where it was from. And they ate it. Nothing bad happened to them. So he's like, see, no big deal. Unclean or not. Whatever. I'm still good. I did that. I did it to the lion. That happened. That's me. God's still with me. And he misses like the whole marrying a Philistine lady and touching dead things and just being in a vineyard. He's just, by a degree at a time, he is getting further and further and further away from true north. Do you guys know what that's like? Honestly, do you know what it's like? Little compromises that you allow into your life that start to take you in a direction you don't want to go. You don't want to go. This is a story for us all. And so, verse 10, so his father went down to the woman. Samson gave a feast there. So you might think, no, he's got friends. He gave a feast. This is a drinking party, guys. For young men used to do so. I think in Philistine culture, the young men used to do so. And it happened when they saw him that they brought 30 companions to be with him. Though they're not going to be his friends. We're going to see that very obviously. These are just Philistine men. You could call them wedding crashers, really. They're just there for the party and for the alcohol. And they're really at enmity with him. Look at what happens next. Then Samson said to them, it's kind of a weird guy, honestly, to say something. You can imagine he's getting married, and he sees all these Philistine men that have shown up. They're like pretending to be his friends because the alcohol is flowing, and they're like, hey guys, I got something to tell you. I want to pose a riddle to you. Who is this guy? Is he a troublemaker? Is he cocky? What's it in his heart here? He says, let me pose a riddle to you. If you can correctly solve and explain it to me within the 7 days of this wedding feast, then I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothing. Understand that he just said, I'll give you 30 sets of underwear and 30 sets of outerwear. Like if I was at that wedding, I'd be like, no thanks. I don't usually let dudes buy me underwear. Like I'm okay. You want to give me a nice jacket? That's cool. But I'm not taking any underwear from you, Samson. So anyhow, just kind of interesting. But clothing, very valuable back then. Most people would only have kind of one set. Maybe you'd want 2 sets of underwear, but anyway. And they said to him, well, pose your riddle that we can hear it. I mean, they're like dumb farm boy. This Israelites, we'll get this for sure. There's 30 of us. We're pretty bright. Obviously alcohol is flowing. And they said to him, pose your riddle that we may hear it. So he said to them, out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. Dude, if you're one of them Philistine guys, what you don't know is that Samson ripped apart a lion in the middle of nowhere, and honey came out of its carcass, and he ate it. How could you ever figure this out? This is an impossible riddle. It cracks me up, and I wish I could remember something verbatim, but sometimes my kids make up jokes, like my little kids, and they make absolutely no sense. Isaac is the best at it. And every once in a while, there's a semblance of sense and meaning, but it's never, like in a million years, you'd never guess it. It's impossible. I mean, it's just impossible. It's not even truly a riddle. It's impossible to answer this. They're never going to get it. And he knew that. And they agreed to the terms, and so he's going to make out like a bandit. Now, for 3 days, they could not explain the riddle, no doubt, right? He was thinking about the lion. What is he thinking about the lion? I'm surrounded by these Philistines, but I'm super strong, apparently. No harm came from going to Timnah. No harm came from marrying a Philistine girl. No harm came from the honey. No harm came from drinking. No harm is going to come from posing this riddle, right? He's going to find out later that he's wrong. It's going to cost him dearly and those that he loves dearly. Now, for 3 days, they couldn't explain the riddle, but it came to pass on the 7th day that they said to Samson's wife, obviously privately, they said, entice your husband that he may explain the riddle to us, or, this is how we know they're not his friends, they say, or else we will burn you and your father's house with fire. Dude, who invited them? I'd be like, hey, you're uninvited. You're blocked, man. I'd like you to leave my ceremony now. Stop eating my food. Stop drinking my drink. You're going to burn me and my family unless I tell you. Well, she's motivated by this, which they knew would happen. And so she went to Samson. Samson's wife wept on him and said, you only hate me. You do not love me. You have posed a riddle to the sons of my people, but you have not explained it to me. You almost can tell that this relationship is not going to last, right? There's some things that are wrong, right? Already we're seeing a need for counseling. And he said to her, look, I have not explained it to my father or mother, So should I explain it to you? Well, that's not a great response, guys. Well, I haven't told mom and dad, so I ain't telling you, woman, right? It's like, oh, well, she's kind of at a higher plane. You married her, not you. You didn't marry your mom, right? You married her. But, Samson has some things to learn, okay? And he said to her, look, I didn't explain it to my mom. I'm not explaining it to you. And now she wept on him the 7 days while the feast lasted. What a honeymoon they're having, right? She's crying. She's being threatened. It's kind of like extortion. It's terrible, right? And it happened why did he make this dumb riddle? What was in his heart? You do so many things that don't make sense, and then we try to act like it was a good idea. Anybody? I've done that. I'm sure you have too. And it happened on the 7th day, that he told her. Why? Because she nagged him to death, right? She pressed him so much. Then she explained the riddle to the sons of her people. And so the men of the city, right, you could see them coming in just before the deadline. They said to him on the 7th day, before the sun went down, well, what is sweeter than honey? And what is stronger than a lion? And he's like, how did you, that woman, right? And he said to them, this is awful. This is one of the worst things you can read in the Bible. He says, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Dude, don't call your new wife your heifer. That's just a word of wisdom. Probably you should never call your wife my heifer. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily. Understand, this is a bit different from the New Testament, where the Spirit of God comes into the hearts of believers and empowers believers to serve God God's way. This is a response. God is choosing to use a very, very flawed individual to bring about some measure of deliverance for the many thousands of Israelites praying and calling out to God. It does not excuse Samson's conduct, his attitude, his words, and his insanity. But the Spirit of the Lord did come upon him mightily. And he went down to Ashkelon, a Philistine city, and he killed 30 of their men. He took their apparel, used underwear, and he gave the changes of clothing. No doubt there was blood, there was all the gross stuff, to those who had explained the riddle. Here you go. You want some clothes? These are from the backs of your countrymen. So his anger was aroused, and he went back up to his father's house. And Samson's wife, who he left behind, guys, he went back to Israel. He left his wife right there in Timnah. She was taken and given to his companion, who had been his best man. Is that really the time? Holy moly. Am I taken forever? Is this story just that good? I can do it. I'm going to do it. You're going to suffer through it. Nah, we'll go fast. He leaves. He didn't go get her. His anger caused him to forget about her. We'll see, her or dad think he's never coming back. But after a while, chapter 15, after a while in the time of the wheat harvest, so it seems like a significant amount of time has elapsed, it happened that Samson visited his wife. I mean, he's like, okay, I guess now's the time. He's cooled off a little bit, right? This guy is such a hothead. And he went back with a young goat. He didn't go back with flowers. He went back with something he could eat. Do you notice that, right? It was for him, not for her. Hey, honey, I'm sorry. I got me a steak. Yeah. And he said, let me go into my wife. Into my wife. That's you know what that means. He's like, I'm here, honey. Let's go upstairs. Sorry. But her father would not permit him to do so, to go in. And her father said, I really thought you thoroughly hated her. Therefore, I gave her to your companion. Then he says, is not her younger sister better than she? Samson, run, man. Get away from this family. This is bad. Please take her instead. That's not going to cause any problems. Men, when you get angry and you run off for a good long time, your wife is left wondering what the heck you're going to do. And in this situation, she actually ended up married to another guy because he never said, hey, I need a moment to cool off. I need to take a walk. I'll be back for you. I love you. I'm sorry. I just can't talk right now. He didn't communicate any of that. And this is how it went down. But Samson, this kicks him into rage again. He said, this time I shall be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them. So then Samson went and he caught, look, I take this stuff literally, but I'm not saying it's far-fetched. I'm just saying this guy is dedicated to revenge. Samson went and he caught 300 foxes. You should probably read jackals. 300 little fox-like creatures. And he took torches. He turned the foxes tail to tail, and he put a torch between each pair of tails. And when he had set the torches on fire, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines and burned up both the shocks and the standing grain, as well as the vineyards and the olive groves. A ton of beer was being made by the Philistines. They were famous for that. And their beer fields, their barley fields, their wheat fields, it was toast. And all those foxes, what a cruel guy, you know. And the Philistines said, who has done this? I mean, they destroyed their agriculture. And they answered, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite. Now, a measure of judgment here from God for their treatment of the nation of Israel, certainly. But why is Samson doing it? Is he saying, man, God has raised me up to deliver the Israelites from you, and God is going to tell me what to do? No, he's just on a revenge fest. That's what he's doing. That's what's motivating him. Who has done this, the Philistines said. And they answered, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion, his best man. So the Philistines came up. What do you think they did? They burned her and her father with fire. Where did his anger get them? He's alive, but they're dead. Samson said to them, since you would do a thing like this, I will surely take revenge on you. A cycle starts. And after that I will cease. That's what he says. So he attacked them hip and thigh. That's kind of an interesting expression. With a great slaughter. Then he went down and dwelt in the cleft of the rock of Etam, like a cave. He gets alone. When it says he attacked them hip and thigh, and he killed them, this is, you can take it or leave it, but he killed them and tortured them by breaking their femurs and ripping their legs out of socket. That's what that means. He didn't need to do that, did he? So he goes and he gets alone. He's a fugitive. He's dealing with the consequences. His wife has been killed. Her family burned. He's there in Edom. And now the Philistines went up and they encamped in Judah. Remember, they're in control. They go to, some of the people of Israel. They deployed themselves against Lehi. And the men of Judah said, why have you come against us? What's wrong? What do you want us to do? And so the Philistines answered, we have come to arrest Samson, to do to him as he has done to us. Then 3,000 men of Judah, of course they've heard of his supernatural strength. They went down to the cleft of the rock of Edom, and they said to Samson, do you not know that the Philistines rule over us? What is this you have done to us? So they show up and they're going to try to reason with him. Come on, man, just give yourself up. You're going to destroy us all. And he said to them, as they did to me, so I have done to them. Is that how you live? I hope not. That is one of the most profoundly worldly ways a person can live. I was hurt, so I'm going to dish it out right back at them. The people, the men of Judah, those 3,000, they said to him, we have come down to arrest you, that we may deliver you into the hand of the Philistines. And Samson said to them, swear to me that you will not kill me yourselves. I'll let you tie me up, but don't kill me yourselves. Swear to me. And so they spoke to him, saying, no, but we will tie you securely and deliver you into their hand, but we will surely not kill you. And they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. Now when he came to Lehi, the Philistines came shouting against him. They're enraged. He burned their beer, right? Their beer fields. Then the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became like flax that is burned with fire, and his bonds broke loose from his hands. It's just him against an army. He found a fresh jawbone. I like details in the Bible. Fresh. It's moist. It's not brittle. It's fresh. A fresh jawbone. That's convenient. Whoop. And he reached out his hand and he took it. And he killed 1,000 men with it. We were joking about something the other night. We're going to be doing some, work in this room over here because it's going to be a youth group room. And then when the new building's in use, it'll be kind of an overflow. And we've got some cool plans, all just simple stuff. But we wanted some of the youth to do some paintings, some, not like crazy stuff, but just cool stuff. And Andrew was, Eva can paint a little bit. And Andrew was like, hey, remember that story in Judges where that woman, Jael, sent that tent stake through Sisera's head? We could have a painting of that. I think that would be pretty awesome. Maybe a little brutal. Then I was thinking about this story, and I'm thinking, Samson with 1,000 dead Philistines all around him, swinging this, jawbone of an ass, right? That would be awesome. We could even make the blood kind of 3D, like pop out at you, right? Be pretty cool. For teenagers, I think they can handle it, Anyhow, and Samson goes, this happens. I know we're going just a smidge long, but hang with me, we're almost done. With the jawbone of a donkey. You can kind of see him there. There's 1,000 dead Philistines all around him. They've stopped coming. They're retreating. Man, they're not gonna take him down. They're not gonna re-enter Israel quickly, knowing that Samson is there. And he stands there and he says, probably shouting, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men. What's going on in his heart and his mind? Is he bragging? Or, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's standing there in awe. What did God just do? Given what we've already read, I think for me, it's my opinion, that he thinks he's pretty awesome. That's my opinion. And I think God is going to allow something to happen in these next few verses to humble this man of great strength and cause him to see who he really is as a human being. Some people need God's help and to be humbled. Like think of Nebuchadnezzar in the Old Testament, greatest king on the face of the earth. And God's like, hey, you're going to crawl around like an animal for 7 years and eat grass. And when he came to, after those 7 years, he recognized that God, the God of all the earth, the God that created the universe, gives authority to even the lowest of men. And he was speaking about himself, and I think a profound change happened in Nebuchadnezzar's life and in his heart. I expect to see him in heaven. This is very rare for a man that ruled the world. As Samson here has this great victory, I have slain. There's no mention of God there. And so it was, verse 17, when he had finished speaking, that he threw the jawbone from his hand, and he called that place Ramath Lehi. I'm going to call this place Jawbone Heights. Man, who wants to move there, right? A little bit of cleanup before you pitch your tent. Then he became, notice this, what? Very thirsty. Still a man. All that strength, so human. Still a man. And he does something. This is the first time we read of him doing this. I don't know his heart, but I don't love this prayer. He's going to pray one more time in the account of Samson's life. He's going to pray at the end of his life. We'll see that next week. But in this prayer, he says, you have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant. So at least now he's recognizing where it came from and who he is. And now I shall die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised. If it's genuine, he's saying, God, keep me alive so I can keep doing your work. And maybe there's a bit of like, get me out of jail so I can do what's right. I don't know, maybe. But he cries out. I guess it's a picture of God's grace. If you were God, would you keep helping a guy like this, that everything you said to not do, he went after? But God split the hollow place that is in Lehi, and water came out, and he drank, and his spirit returned, and he revived. Therefore he called its name En Hakor, or spring of the caller. I called to God, and he helped me, which is in Lehi to this day. And he judged Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. Maybe it was that 20 years of relative safety. The Philistines remembered, their thousands slain with the jawbone of a donkey. There was some measure of deliverance. Maybe there was a bit of a turning point in Samson's life for those 20 years. We don't have anything about how he lived. Did he pray? Did he return to God? Did he start doing what was right? We don't have any of that, just that he judged. Israel recognized him as a leader, and there was relative safety. But we'll see that the Philistines really aren't completely beaten in his lifetime. I don't know if this is kind of a weird thing to say, and I guess it's a little bit more for the men here. I would say don't be Samson. But I think there's a part of us secretly in our flesh. I'm not talking about the good part of us, the renewed part of us, the new man, but I think there's a part of us in the old man. Now we're alive in Christ. We're following God. We want to do what's right. We have to make sure that there's no part of us that want a ministry like Samson's. Incredible strength, incredible talent when we need it, but, man, living in debauchery whenever we want to. If your thing's watching James Bond movies, like that's your hero, you probably are going to end up something like Samson. Kill a few people, save the world, get the girl. And then another girl, and then another girl, and then We have to make sure that there's no room for that at all in our hearts. As if some kind of talent or some kind of like speaking ability or intelligence or wisdom or aptitude or just something that we do can outweigh just simple obedience to the Lord. Quiet obedience, simple faithfulness is what the Lord is looking for. And Samson had an incredible, I don't even want to call it talent, but gift. But look how he lived his life. We'll see him visiting prostitutes next week. We'll see him hooking up with Delilah, and he keeps going further and further and further down the toilet, toying with the source, the true source of his strength, which he fails to recognize. It's not his hair. It's not his long hair. It's a relationship with God. And if you keep pushing God away and you keep quieting him, you keep rejecting his still small voice, you can end up just like this guy, unable to see, a ruined life, a wasted life. Who wants that? Who wants that as their legacy? But he made it to Hebrews 11. I mean, he's a man of faith. There's a reason I didn't call any of my sons Samson. And the reason that I'm glad my name is not Samson. Right? Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this evening. Thank you for the time and your word and just the wonderful fellowship, Lord, as we stay and hang out and just, hang with each other. Would you bless our time, Lord? We need it. We need this, Lord. And we thank you for a sweet time of worship, a time in your word, a time together, and most of all, for being present with us, Lord. You speak, Lord. To this day, you speak through your word. We so appreciate that and the simplicity of it. We pray this in your precious name. Amen. Grace and peace, guys.